We call this food Eucharist, and no one may take part in it unless he believes that what we teach is true, has received baptism for the forgiveness of sins and new birth, and lives in keeping with what Christ taught. Eucharist and the limits of the participation. Here we are in a question I cannot avoid to address, and I will try to do it as shortly as possible. Who is allowed to participate in the Eucharist? Isn't it a difficult question that the Lord wants us to share His life, but that the Church tells us that there are certain conditions to participate in the Eucharist? Before coming to this question, I want to summarize shortly, again in 3 points. What is the Eucharist now, what we celebrate in every Holy Mass? It's a memorial, it's a sacrifice, and it's a real presence. It is a memorial. Sometimes we have difficulties, the Catholics, to assume that the Eucharist is a memorial. We think that's typically Protestant. But let us listen what the Catechism says in 136. In the sense of sacred scripture, the memorial is not merely the recollection of past events, but the proclamation of the mighty works wrought by God for man. In the liturgical celebration of these events, they become, in a certain way, present and real. This is how Israel understands its liberation from Egypt. Every time Passover is celebrated, the Exodus events are made present to the memory of believers so that they may conform their lives to them. As I see here, our dear Austrian friend Ruth Steiner, she came from Vienna. We have worked a lot together. She's from Jewish origin. She's Catholic. She knows very well the Passover, the Seder liturgy. And there is a rite in the Seder liturgy, especially of the Sephardic Jewish tradition, where the house father stands up, takes the unleavened bread into linen, puts it over his shoulder, and begins standing on his place with a song as if he would march out of Egypt. What does it mean? The Jewish Seder explains, whoever participates now in the Seder, in the Passover, has to consider himself as walking out from Egypt. That happens now. And that's exactly how we understand the mystery of Eucharist, the memorial. We make memory of Jesus, of His Paschal mystery, and it becomes present. We are now present in the Last Supper. We are present at Golgotha and at the resurrection. That's the meaning of memorial. But Eucharist is also a sacrifice. In what sense? In the sense that Jesus has given His life. We firmly believe that Jesus has given His life in sacrifice for us. How is the Eucharist a sacrifice? Catechism says, because Eucharist is the memorial of Christ's Passover, therefore it is also a sacrifice. The sacrificial character of the Eucharist is manifest in the very words of institution. This is my body which is given up for you, sacrificed for you. This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. The blood is shed in sacrifice for us. The Eucharist is a sacrifice because it is a memorial. It sounds strange, but it is the teaching of the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent explicitly says the Eucharist is a sacrifice because it represents, makes present, the sacrifice of the cross, because it is its memorial and because it applies its fruits to us. Therefore, Eucharist is a sacrifice. You can imagine that speaking about the sacrifice of the Eucharist in 5 minutes cannot be the full theological course on the Eucharist, and I hope we'll have more lengthy lectures about this great question. But certainly, Eucharist is a presence. What kind of presence is the Eucharist? There are many ways of the presence of Christ. Christ is present in His Word. Christ is present in the poor, in the needy. Christ is present wherever 2 or 3 gather in His name. Christ is present in us bishops. They do not say, look at us, you see. No, it is true, sacramentally true. He is really present in the bishop, in the priest. He is present in every faithful who has received baptism. And nevertheless, Vatican II teaches He is present most especially in the Eucharistic species. Most especially. What does it mean? Pope Paul VI said once, the presence is called real, by which is not intended to exclude the other types of presence, as if they could not be real too, but because it is presence in the fullest sense. That is to say, it is a substantial presence by which Christ, God and man, makes Himself wholly and entirely present. Therefore, the Council of Trent says this presence is true, real, and substantial. True, real, and substantial. Different from all types of reality of presence we can imagine, because it is not only a presence through intention, presence through desire, through sign. It is a presence of substance. Christ in Himself, with His body and soul, with His humanity and divinity, is present in the Eucharist. Therefore, we cannot renounce to the term transubstantiation. I know this is not an easy word, but it's a substantial word for our faith. Christ is present because bread is not any longer bread. And wine is not any longer wine. The species remain, but the substance is different. It has become his body and his blood. What follows from that presence? Let me quote again, or let me say again, 3 short ones. Definitively, the Jesuits have a bad influence on me. What follows? First of all, the Eucharistic presence lasts as long as the speeches last. When the bread is consumed and not any longer bread, then the sacramental presence has passed. The blood of Christ is present as long as the species of wine is present. Therefore, we have to receive Holy Communion in the most real, most realistic sense of Jesus being really present with us. Claire, a little girl of 4.5 years, of a family who are dear friends. They are 6 children. Claire is the second last, 4.5 years old. She prays every day personally for me. I'm very touched by that goodness of Claire. Her mother comes back from the communion. She sits down. Claire puts her head on her breast, on her mother's breast, and says, "Mom, Jesus is now within you. I want to be close to him." Mother says to the parish priest, "I think Claire is ready for early communion." I think too. The parish priest asks Claire, "Claire, tell me, do you want that Jesus comes to you in the Eucharist?" What is the answer of Claire? "No, Jesus wants to come to me." Yes, she is ready for receiving communion.